What did you understand about this war, since you have no information?
Страшно. Бомбят. Страшно. Отсюда выходить страшно.
It's very horrible. She is scared to go out.
Mentre la diplomazia americana si trova qui in Israele per seguire le operazioni, a Gerusalemme regna il silenzio.
So here is a little bit of the field experience I've made in the last two conflicts that are shaking the world right now. First, I was in Ukraine, in Donbass, close to the front line, and then here in Israel, first near to the Gaza Strip, and then in Palestine, precisely in the West Bank. This is what I'm doing right now as a war reporter and geopolitical analyst. But I don't want to talk to you about war or geopolitics. I want to tell you a little bit about how I got there, who I was and who I am now. So here is me now, washing dishes in a shower used by Ukrainian soldiers in a safe house a few miles from the front line in Donbass. Here I am in Palestine, and this is me now. This is me then, 2 years ago, an anti-corruption lawyer in a multinational law firm in New York City. What is the difference between the two photos, between the two me? I can tell you that personally, the only difference I see is the courage to change my mind. I'm happy to be here in Ascoli because actually I come from a very small village here nearby, very far from the big centers. And as for you maybe, or some of you as well, to me that place was a little bit too narrow. Even though it gave me my roots, my family, my value structure, which I brought with me when I went out into the world, like in Paris, in Brussels, and then in New York City. And one of the deepest memories I have while I was living there is when in 6th grade, the art teacher, who bragged that she would never give an A, the best grade, to a 6th grade student because it was too immature, actually was forced to give me the best grade in a drawing. But not because of the creativity or the technique I used, because I'm really bad at drawing, actually. She gave me A, the best grade, in the commitment category. And that moment always stuck with me. And in retrospect, right now, I can tell you that, yeah, it had a meaning. For me, going out into the world with commitment meant graduating first of my class in Sorbonne University in a double major degree in Italian and French law. It meant taking additional exams just to write a thesis in English in Brussels. It meant winning a full scholarship and being sent as one Sorbonne ambassador in New York City for a master. It meant becoming a lawyer and starting conducting global anti-corruption investigations all around the world. I was 24 years old, and I was basically done with my American dream. I had my office, my personal office, on the 42nd floor of Rockefeller Center near Times Square. I was living in the Upper East Side, 10 minutes walk from Central Park, and basically I was a very young career woman. On paper, perfect. Inside, nothing at all. I felt miserable. And I felt like that because nothing I was doing was really actually aligned with my own identity. And I had to get to the top to realize that. I had to touch those heights, and to get that, I had lost so much of myself. I always proceeded because I had to be the best, not really because I was passionate about something. So again, with discipline and commitment, in 2 years, I basically changed my life. I realized I was more interested in geopolitics, so I started studying and taking classes while I was still a lawyer. I decided to come back to Italy after 8 years abroad and started writing articles for the Italian Journal of Geopolitics. And then I realized I didn't just want to study geopolitics on books, I also wanted to do it on the field. So I used the money I made in New York City to invest in myself. And when the Russian invasion of Ukraine happened, I went to Ukraine, where I spent 3 months and a half writing articles. And then TV and radio stations noticed me, they started calling me. A publisher noticed me and asked me to write a book. The book was noticed as well and was presented at the Chamber of Deputies in Rome last year. And then the war in Gaza started, and I decided to go even there between Israel and Palestine, where I spent 1 month. And now, basically, I'm writing articles and doing geopolitical analysis, and I'm having so much fun with what I'm doing. I know that my story could end here, basically with the idea that if you work hard enough, you can achieve whatever you want. But that would be just the showcase of what my past 2 years have been. Actually, the choice I made to leave everything behind and start new again was a difficult one. And I know that for some of you it may sound as a mistake, but at this point in my life, I'm 30 years old, I identify myself still so much with my work, with the job I have. So at that point in my life, I basically had to accept that I no longer had an identity because I was no longer the anti-corruption lawyer in New York City, and basically I had to accept that I no longer knew who I was. Thus far, I had gone on autopilot, basically breaking down door after door, but at that moment I had to do the opposite. I had to stop, to abandon my old self and start new. And I want to be frank with you, it was a moment of great rupture and heavy identity crisis. And that's why when I now talk to people, even to understand the maturity of the person I have in front of me, I often get to ask this question. But have you ever taken any beatings in your life? And by beatings, I really mean these moments of rupture, of crisis, which can be personal, like a toxic relationship. It can be family matter, like the loss of a loved one. Or it can be a major work disappointment, like an unexpected layoff. All these are very painful and violent moments, if you want. But they're also very important stages because they ground our next identity. So since I was there, I would like to give you a little bit of a perspective about what can happen at such times. First of all, if you are starting all over again, you have to accept that whatever your next identity will be, it will definitely be, at least at the beginning, the identity of a freshman, of a newcomer, of a beginner, and it can be difficult. Second of all, you have to deal with an inner voice, a form of self-sabotage, which goes this way. Are you crazy? Are you really gonna leave everything behind and really just to take a leap in the void and the dark? Why don't you just settle down? Why isn't all this enough for you? And for me, it was not only just the inner voice inside my brain, it was also the voice of legitimately concerned parents, like my dad here somewhere, who was asking me, are you crazy? Do you realize all the sacrifices we have made, and you have made, and to do what? Geopolitical analysis in Italy, or even worse, war reportage in combat zones? Third, you have to deal with the imposter syndrome, which is something that affects especially girls and women, and goes this way. Now, everyone looking at me thinks I'm a good person, thinks I'm a person of depth, and thinks I know what I'm talking about. But actually, they're wrong. And rest assured that sooner or later, they're going to realize I'm not as good as they think. They're going to realize that I've made them think that I know what I'm talking about, but instead, I'm a fraud. This is a terrible voice I've been living with for 30 years. And you see, these are all just examples of psychological weaknesses that life sooner or later asks us to cope with, or at least ask and challenge those who aspire to better themselves, to something new. Really just to test how close we want to get to our next identity. So, how do we get to our next identity? I can tell you what I figured out from my own experience. I realized that we have to train ourselves to establish an inner dialogue with ourselves. A constant, regular, stable one, where attempt after attempt, we try to feel and not to think what resonates most in us. What is the one thing that pertains to our own uniqueness? What is the one thing that when you think about it, you feel good, you feel yourself with no judgment? And even if things are not yet clear, still take action, still explore, go by trial and error. You fail and then start again. And in all this process, please let go the need to control that. And why? Because I realize that change is an unhealthy drug. Because when we accept change, when we make peace with that, we enable our vision to evolve and to change continuously. So when we are doing something that at some point in our life we feel that does not belong to us anymore, always remember that between the us of now and the us of the future, there's still us. There's still our fear, our legitimate fear, our choice to be afraid, which is totally fine. But there's also the responsibility to take that step forward to get closer to the us of the future, to the us we want to be, to our next identity. And I cannot stress that enough. It's not just a form of responsibility. It's a form of respect and tenderness that we owe to ourselves. So I want to leave you with one last theme that maybe brings us back to our afternoon topic. I had never fully understood why so many people, really nice people close to me, often said that, Greta will be able to reach whatever she wants because she puts so much effort and, she will get what she wants. Now, I think that a lot of this has to do with trust, with confidence, or as one dear person said to me once, with an irrational dimension of dreaming. Which means that it can be also be naive and childish. It's a sort of sense of optimism. It's an irrational drive, which I think is really like the best effective energy for success, which the success I understand it as a success, meaning the alignment to our own identity, and which even if we remain grounded and realistic and pragmatical, still I feel the responsibility to cherish and to protect. And if there is anything I can leave with you today, is that surely the beatings will come. All the manipulation, all the jealousies, all the cynicism of this world will come upon us, for sure. But if we train our brain and our hearts to process, to practice, and to take care of that optimism of will that Gramsci talked about, our future will definitely be sweet, taste sweet, or at least it will definitely taste sweeter than the future of those, the vast majority of the people who unfortunately do not have this trust inside themselves. Thank you.